Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. You are welcome to another edition of Dear Gospel Musician. And today, today I want us to have a very casual conversation about something that is happening in a gospel space. Now, I believe that particular issue is trending, and some opportunistic people are trying to leverage on it for whatever personal gains and stuff. But I want us to pick it from an angle as Christians, especially as gospel musicians. Now, you would ask what it is that I'm talking about. We all know the situation of uh, Edward Kusi Boateng, a once very vibrant gospel minister whose songs were all over. I mean, there was no day you would pass by some years back where you wouldn't hear Weni Makuma Swadye, Weni Makuma Swadye, Weni Makuma Swadye, Weni Makuma Swadye, Mena Fonoma, Mede Meni to also know, Miankaza Mebusiafua, Many da also know. I mean, we know these songs. And it was big back then. He used to play. He still actually plays his. I've still not gotten the name of. Is it accordan or accordia or whatever? That's organ thing that is being moved around. And he's been off the scene for some time. Only for a video of him to come out where he was selling his music on a pendrive in the market. And that is where the conversation started. So it was like, but this one's big gospel minister now selling his pendrive at the market. And it just generated a lot of conversations. People started saying things. The narratives were from different angles. And then fast forward, people started coming to his aid to help him out, to support him. And I have seen some Christians attacking the man. Some gospel ministers, musicians, attacking him and saying all sorts of things. Ignorance Christians, if I can put it that way. I want to be calm and talk about this because we make mockery of ourselves as Christians. We mock ourselves a lot. See, now the devil doesn't need to come and worry the church with outsiders. Christians would mock the church. Christians would mock our own God. Christians would mock our faith. I want to pick the conversation from some angles. One, let's go back during the time of Edward Kusi Boateng. How was the music business like? How was the industry like? To the best of my knowledge, I know that those days it wasn't so much about the digital stores and internet, Facebook, social media, stuff like that. So what I know is that when their music comes out, they get a distribution house, these big companies. They get the song, they sort the musicians out, then they will do the distribution. So that is how it was. That was the business. It was like a simple give and take kind of thing. So I saw some narratives of, but he had a lot of properties. He had cars, as he said. He had this, he had that. How is that he's now broke, he's poor, and he's round begging and stuff. Let me correct this narrative before I even go on. The man wasn't begging anybody. Per what has come out, what we've all seen, the man didn't go begging anybody. On the contrary, he was out selling his own music on a pendrive. So he was actually out doing manual work of his music, as compared to now that we have everything digitized and everything going. He was selling his music on a pendrive. Mind you, those days music was on cassettes. So music was sold like it was physically. You get your cassette, you play it in your stereo. When you were with a pen and shim, you roll that thing to. That was then. But now, obi aye enyum ne kra no only a hard copy yet, but the song is all over the place. That is how different the systems are. So he was actually out selling his own music manually. That is where someone saw him and then the video came out, blah, 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 blah. So my question is, what is so wrong about that? What is so wrong about that we have some Christians making it look like he was out begging or he was out asking for some alms or whatever? He was selling his music. That's the first thing. Now, because of his popularity, and because of how well known he was, and because of the kind of songs that he had that was more like a national song, such a person will draw attention when someone sees him doing something like that. So that is what generated a conversation that, that he granted an interview. He said this, that he gave out a story of what happened. I haven't seen anywhere in any video, I stand to be corrected, I haven't seen any video where he was in an interview and was saying that or he needs money to do this. I haven't seen that. If there is, someone should bring it up. So in effect, this man wasn't out begging anybody. But because of who he is, people have come to his aid because his songs made so much impact those days growing up. And people who could identify and relate with the songs, I'm like, no, let's be a blessing to this person. What is so wrong about that? That's some self-righteous, entitled people who believe they are so close to God, they actually have God's WhatsApp number, have the moral right and effrontery to try and degrade the man because he's receiving help. If we Christians, when we set to help each other out in a time like this, we then make it look like it is even rubbish to need help and for people to help you, and it makes you lesser of a person, then at the end of the day, the Bible that we read that says that God will cause men to give unto you, how do we balance this? Because in one breath, Christians believe that yes, God can use anybody to do anything for you. God can do this, God can do that. Fine. But in another breath, God is doing something in the life of someone, and then you come round to make it look like it is so wrong for that to happen. are we not just confusing ourselves and the people who are looking up to us as believers? Away from that, if you listen to the man's songs, for me, I came to the conclusion that everything that is happening was actually probably destined to happen, because he's living the testimony in the song. I don't know how many of you have listened to that particular song. This is everything that is happening is like a living testimony to that song that he sang. And when my attention was drawn to it, I was like, wow. Because it was almost, it's not almost like, it is like everything that he said in his song is exactly what is happening. So that also brings me to this part of today's conversation. Dear gospel musician, your songs that you are writing, the songs that you are bringing out, the songs that you are singing, does it minister to you? I believe when he wrote that song, he had that strong conviction in his spirit that God should grant his heart's desire, that he wouldn't get into a situation where he would have to beg, so that people would see that God is God. God should bless him, so that even when he's in his lowest moments, that is his heart desire, that God would bless him, so that glory would go to him, God. Dear gospel musician, your songs that you are writing, is it ministering to you? Does your songs minister to you? Or is just beats and melodies as usual? I believe his song ministered to him, and the song is actually being lived in HD right now. That's what I believe. And that is why I am of the view that as a gospel musician, you don't just come out and sing for the trends. You don't just come out with projects for the trends. You don't just come out and do things because, Charlie, I for drop this, I for do this, I for do this, I for do that. You are not a businessman first. You're a soul winner. That's why I keep saying that gospel music is not showbiz. Gospel music is soul biz. Let's just imagine the number of people who have been blessed by that particular song. That song, let's just imagine the number of people who have been blessed by that song. So now, if years back, like years ahead, this same person who made that song is in a position where it almost seems like God is not there, would that live the testimony of the song? No. So this is actually to glorify himself as God. If you're a gospel person, if you're a Christian, if you're a gospel musician, and you don't see that everything that is happening, it is actually God's way of glorifying himself, that he is still God, irrespective of the situation. In the Bible, the disciple asked Jesus, is it his fault or his mother's fault? Is it something that has happened? Is it something that he did wrong? Is it a sin? Is it whatever? Jesus said no. So that God will be glorified. So if you are not discerning enough to understand that this is God's way of glorifying himself, everything that is happening, to be a testimony to people that this is what God can do, irrespective of the situation. And instead of praising God and glorifying God for the situation and what is happening as a testimony, we have believers, we have Christians making a mockery out of this. It is sad. Honestly, it is very sad. And I keep saying this, that if the early days of the church, that time where Christians were identified and tagged because of how they act, how they behaved, they did certain things that made people attribute them to Christ, hence the name Christians at Antioch. They saw certain people doing certain things like someone, so there they gave them that tag, nickname Christ-like, being Christians. If that time was now, trust me, the term Christian wouldn't have come. Because now Christians don't act like Christ. Christians, we don't act like Christ. We act like ourselves. Because any true believer, any true Christian who understands the things of the Spirit, understands that God is God. God is sovereign. God can do what he wants at any time. Wouldn't make mockery out of the situation of AKWESI Boateng. Because you would understand that that is a manifestation of his testimony. And let's understand that the music business is different. Those musicians from way back didn't have the luxury of certain things that we are enjoying now. And unfortunately for some of them, they haven't been able to plug themselves in the new system. That is the truth. So for some of them, it is very difficult for them to adjust. I don't know if AKWESI Boateng has a management online systems like these, DSPs, has the songs being distributed and stuff. But that is one major problem with a lot of our older generation, the gospel older generations, because most of them are stuck in the past. It will shock you that some big names until recently didn't even have their songs on the digital stores. And these are like national legends. And even today, some don't. Because sometimes you would remember a particular song, you want to look for the song, you will search all over the digital stores, you wouldn't find the song. So that I can attribute that to our whatever sort of industry we have, that music thing that we have, that we call an industry, that is not really working. We have a structure that looks like a structure, but it doesn't really hold and support a lot of things. Because if it did, one, because someone like AKWESI Boateng wouldn't be in this situation, because his royalties would be able to take care of him. But I feel that notwithstanding, it is not too late for our older generation, our older folks, to adjust themselves with a new way of doing things. And there has been so much exploitation. Let me say this. So much exploitations by this current generation of some of the older folks. A lot of this current generation feeding off the work of the older folks and not giving that credit to them. This is a whole different conversation that maybe I'll do another session to talk about. But I would want to encourage us as believers that everything that happens for a reason. The Bible says something. It says, for all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. If you're a believer and you understand this scripture, sometimes you wouldn't even make certain comments about certain things, or say certain things, or even act in certain ways, because you would understand that everything that is happening, once you are in the will of God, has a purpose.